Okay. Number one, good evening, everybody. Good Chodesh, everybody. And good Yom Tif, everybody. Today is a very special day in the Chabad calendar, Rosh Chodesh Kislev. In the Mitzvah Shem, at the end, the last while of the class, we'll have a little Farbrengen in honor of Rosh Chodesh Kislev. And we'll all be interconnected to what we're talking about here. Okay. The Parsha this week is Parsha's Toldot. And there's a lot of things to talk on Parshas Toldot, some fundamental aspects. Like we know everything that happened to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov and the Shvatim is not a personal thing that happened to them. It's actually lessons for all generations, because every Jew is the child of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Not every Jew is a child of Reuven or Shimon or Levi. Some of us come from Reuven or Shimon or Levi, but Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, everybody is a part of. Now, the opening pasuk of the parsha seemingly is redundant. It says, "Ele Toldot Yitzchak ben Avram." These are the children of Yitzchak, the son of Avram. And then the pasuk says, "Avram Heled es Yitzchak." Pasuk says, "Avram gave birth to Yitzchak." So all the commentaries ask, including Rashi, what is the redundancy? Obviously, if Yitzchak is the son of Avram, then Avram gave birth to Yitzchak. So Rashi says, one answer, that people were making fun that Sarah and Avram were married for so many years and didn't have children. And then Sarah was taken to Pari's house and Abimelech's house. And therefore, she got pregnant from them, not from Avram Avinu. So what did Hashem do? Hashem made that Avram and Yitzchak looked identical. So therefore, the pasuk is saying, Avram Heled es Yitzchak. Not only is Yitzchak the child of Avram, but he looked exactly like Avram Avinu. That's the simple meaning. Another interpretation, the Medrash says, a very important lesson. It says, Eila Toldot Yitzchak ben Avram, and Avram Heled es Yitzchak means as follows. Many times, children are not proud of the parents, or the parents are not proud of the children. Here we say, Eila Toldot Yitzchak ben Avram, the Medrash says, Yitzchak was proud of his father Avraham. He was very proud of him. Avram, Heled es Yitzchak. Avram was very proud of his son Yitzchak. Now, the obvious question is, Avram Avinu was the epitome of completeness. Avram was a complete tzaddik. He was tamim. As Avram Avinu was a perfect Jew. Why in the world should he be proud of Yitzchak? In other words, Yitzchak was adding something to Avram Avinu that Avram Avinu didn't have on his own. So, besides the fact that this in itself is a very important lesson, by the way, what type of children do we need to raise? Children that are proud of the parents, and parents are proud of the children. If you think about it, it's seemingly very simple, but it's very profound. A proper family is when the children are proud of the parents and the parents are proud of the children. That means things went right. In the education, the relationship, everything was good. But the Rebbe explains that Avram and Yitzchak, as we see in last week's Parsha, and this week's Parsha, Avram and Yitzchak were very different. Avram, if you look in last week's Parsha, what did Avram Avinu do? Hachnasas orchim, hospitality. What do we find Yitzchak did in this week's Parsha? He dug wells. One well, they fought. Another well, they fought. Another well, they didn't fight. So, by the way, the Ramban says, I don't want to elaborate on it now, the Ramban says the 3 wells that Yitzchak dug correspond to 3 temples, 3 Botei Mikdashes. The first temple was destroyed, they fought over it. The second temple was destroyed, they fought over it. The third Beis Hamikdash, what we called Rechoves, got the Lono Farino Ba'aretz, that now we're peaceful. No, they didn't fight upon it. That refers to the third Beis Hamikdash. And there's a whole thing about the connection between the wells and the Beis Hamikdash. But just coming back to this point is like this. Yitzchak dug wells, and Avram had an inn, basically. But you have to understand, when the Torah goes through close to half the Parsha, or a third of the Parsha, with Yitzchak digging wells, we're not talking about the simple meaning of Yitzchak digging the well. we're talking about a form of serving Hashem. Avram was called Avram Ohavi. Avram, Hashem said, Ohavi means my Ahava, my friend. Avram Avinu served Hashem with Ahava, with love. Yitzchak, as the pasuk says, Pachad Yitzchak. Yitzchak served Hashem with fear. Bittul, Pachad Yitzchak, the fear, the awe of Yitzchak. In attributes, in Midas, Avram is a level of Chesed, and Yitzchak is a level of Gevurah. To give you an understanding what Chesed and what Gevurah is, Chesed is when I'm in a better position than you are. Okay, I live at home, you're traveling, I give you food. That's what Avram Avinu did. So what did he do? Chesed is kindness. Mean I can give the kindness, you need the kindness, and that's the level of kindness. That's known as Momaila Lamata, from higher to lower. Okay, which brings the concept of godliness coming down into the world. What did Avram Avinu do? Avram Avinu spread godliness in the world. Avram Avinu publicized the name of Hashem. Avram Avinu made godly, the world godly. He made people aware of godliness. That's the level of Chesed. Therefore, what did Avram Avinu do for a living, so to speak? How did this Aveda manifest itself in his daily living? He had an in, Achnasas Orchim. Yitzchak is Pachat, Gevurah. Gevurah is removal, retraction, limiting. It's the opposite of Chesed. Chesed is when I give. Gevurah is when I take back. And therefore, as we know, water is likened to Chesed, and fire is likened to Gevurah. Water goes mimokim gavoya lemokim nomuch. Water goes from a high place to a low place. And fire, on the other hand, goes upward. Fire goes upward. That's the level of Gevurah. Not giving, but removal. What's the inyan of digging wells? Digging wells that Yitzchak Avinu did. What's the concept of a well? There's water beneath the surface. When you dig the well, the water comes up. It's not water going from a high place to a low place. It's not the hospitality of Avram Avinu bringing godliness into the world. Yitzchak's Aveda was fear, awe, Pachad Yitzchak, digging wells. What does that mean, digging wells? Digging deep into ourselves to reveal the godliness that all of us have. The neshama, to reveal all the neshama that each one of us have. And sometimes you have to dig deep into ourselves to be able to do that. There are a number of cases and stories with two people, in fact, in Connecticut. I'm not going to mention names. Somebody wrote into the Rebbe, he never met the Rebbe before. Okay, I'll say his name because it's a famous story, Rabbi Weintraub in Connecticut. And he never met the Rebbe. He was having problems. And he wrote to the Rebbe that he didn't even sign his name. He wrote his name and his mother's name. And he wrote to the Rebbe, he lives in Connecticut and he's doing this and this and that, and he has a lot of problems. And the Rebbe answered him, do you know that in the city where you live, there's a person called Rabbi Weintraub, whatever the name is, and he could help you. So when Rabbi Chadakov, the Rebbe's secretary, gave this Rabbi the answer, he said, but that's me. So he said, Rabbi Chadakov said, then that's what the Rebbe is telling you. Dig deep into yourself and you'll see what you can accomplish, what you're able to create, what you're able to do. And this was the Aved of Yitzchak. And therefore Avram was proud of Yitzchak. Yitzchak was proud of Avram, meaning they each complemented each other, not giving compliments, they fulfilled each other, because when Avram had the level of Chesed, Ava, higher to lower, and Yitzchak had the level of Yitzchak, Avram Hailed as Yitzchak, meaning the level of digging wells, digging deep into the Jew to find within ourselves the power and ability that we have. That was the Aved of Yitzchak. And therefore, yes, Avram was complete, but Avram was complete in the level of Chesed. Yitzchak was complete in the level of Gevurah. So therefore, Avram, Yitzchak ben Avram, Yitzchak was the child of Avram. He was proud of the fact, meaning Avram helped him, and he helped Avram in their serving Hashem because they were able to do both things together. Another thing we find an interesting thing about Yitzchak's birth, really it's in last week's Parsha, it says that Avram, but the Rebbe says it here in the Sichos. The Rebbe says, the Pasuk says that Avram made a very big party, b'yem hi gomel es Yitzchak. There's a lot of interpretations. One interpretation is he gomel means when Avram Avinu had his bris. Why? Hey gomel, he gomel is spelled hey gimel mem lamid. Right? Hey is 5, gimel is 3, is 8. 8th day. Mol is the bris. B'yom he gomel es Yitzchak. Commentaries explain, according to some of them, it refers to the time when he had a bris. Avram made a big party for the bris. Another opinion says he gomel when he became bar mitzvah. So the Medrash says that at that party, why is it to Mishta Gadol? So Rashi says all the great leaders of that time came. Oig Melech HaBashan, all the kings, everybody was there. And everybody was teasing Oig Melech HaBashan. Because Oig Melech HaBashan was saying about Avram and Sarah that they're a mule, they can never give birth, they can never have kids, they cannot do anything. And you were making fun of them. Look at this, now you're at the party of their kid. So Oig said to them, the Medrash says, with one tiny finger, I can crush this little kid. I can crush him. So a voice came out from heaven and said, not only are you not going to crush their children, you're going to see hundreds and hundreds of thousands of them, and you are going to fall into their children's hands. Because we know Moshe Rabbeinu killed Oig. Okay? This is what the Medrash says. So the Rebbe has a whole regime on it, and the Sichos, the Rebbe says the following. This level, again, every story in Chumash is a lesson for us. In life, we are, like the Pasuk says, Atem ma'at mikol ha'amim. We're the least of all nations. Okay, we're the least of all nations. We're a tiny nation. And there's a lot of Oig Melech HaBashans out there that want to destroy us. Like Oig Melech HaBashan, this party that Avram Avinu made. So there's an Oig Melech HaBashan that says, big deal, I can crush you kids. I can crush the Jewish people like nothing with my baby finger. Hashem said to him, yeah, hold on. Let's see who's going to destroy who. Which the Rebbe says in the Sicha, in the Rishima, the Rebbe writes, this teaches us that even though seemingly this Oig Melech HaBashan, the world powers, the world giants, wanted to destroy the Jewish people, the Jew has to know that they're going to fall prey to us. We are going to destroy them. We are not going to get killed by them. But the Jew has to know that because Hashem promised this is what's going to happen, a Jew needs to understand that they need to be proud of the fact that they're a Jew and not to be scared of anybody else in the world, of all the Oig Melech HaBashan that Torah testifies is a massive giant and very powerful. But the Torah is teaching us on Yitzchak's birth and Yitzchak's party that there's nothing to be afraid of. Okay? Again, I'm going to run through a number of issues of the Parsha that maybe speak about Rosh Chodesh Kislev also, because tonight is Rosh Chodesh Kislev. There's the famous story at the beginning of the Parsha. Finally, Yitzchak and Rivka didn't have any children. And finally, they started davening after 20 years of marriage, and they didn't have any children. So it says, Rivka was in one corner, and Yitzchak was in another corner, and finally she got pregnant. So Rivka says what happened. The children were fighting within themselves. right? The twins, the fetuses were fighting. And Rashi says, when she walked by a yeshiva shul, Yaakov kicked to go out. When she went by a church, Avodah Zarah, Yitzchak kicked, he wanted to go out. So therefore, okay, the children fought within her, and she says, Lama zanech, what do I want from this? Okay, Hashem, she wanted to ask Hashem. Okay, as the Medrash says, she didn't want to go to her father-in-law Avram Avinu because she didn't want to hurt him. There was this fighting going on, so she went to the yeshiva Shem Ve'ever to ask him what it means. Hashem said to her, what? He said, listen, Shnei Goyim Bevitnech. You're good. Huh? Through Rashi says, through the Navi over there. Hashem said to her, Shnei Goyim Bevitnech, don't worry. What did Rivka think? Rivka thought she has one baby. That's what she thought. She knows she was having twins. She thought there's one baby. All of a sudden, you go by a shul, he's kicking to go out to a shul. You walk by a church, he's kicking to go out to the church. And like, well, what does this kid make up his mind? Okay? But the lesson here is much deeper. The Mefarshim ask, and the Rebbe brings it down there, the Mefarshim ask a very simple question. If Yaakov wanted to go out by a shul, and Esav wanted to go out by a church, what are they fighting about? Yaakov wants Olam Haba, Yitzchak wants Olam Hazeh. So why are they fighting? I mean, Esav wants this world. Yaakov wants Olam Haba. So what are they fighting about? You take Olam Haba, I'll take Olam Hazeh. You take Olam Hazeh, I'll take Olam Haba. Why what was the fight about? Especially when Rivka was told there's two nations, Ushnelum and Ayim Elaim Yemetz, there's going to be a battle between them. What's the battle? Esav wants this world, Yaakov wants Olam Haba. What's the issue? So there's a Rambam, it's called Shmeina Prakim, which is the Rambam's introduction to Pirkei Avos. The Rambam wrote the Pirush Mishnayos and all of Mishnah. So the introduction to Pirkei Avos is called Shmeina Prakim, because there's an 8-chapter introduction to Pirkei Avos. Over there, the Rambam writes, there's two types of people, two types of Jews. There's a pasuk that's called, a person that's called Chos Mu'ula, a lofty Chassid. Chassid HaMu'ula, Maila. The Rambam writes, there's a Jew that is a perfect Jew. No evil, no fighting, no perfect. And then you have a second Jew that's Kevish Es Yitzrei, that conquers his Yetzer Hara. That's a battle. He has a battle. And I'll explain this whole thing based on Tanya in very soon. You'll understand it. The Rambam writes there's two types of Jews. There's a Jew that's a perfect Jew. Like we find Yaakov Ish Tom Yeshev Eholim. What did Yaakov Avinu do? Yaakov Avinu sat and learned Torah the whole day. He didn't have a Yetzer Hara to fight with. He didn't deal with world. He was sitting in yeshiva, Eholim. He sat and learned Torah the whole day. Esav, on the other hand, was a man in the world. Ish Tzayed Yedei Ish Sadeh. Okay, he was a man of the field. The field represents the outside world, outside of Kedusha, outside of a city which represents civilization. What does this refer to as follows? Because the Rebbe asked the question, let me go back a minute. It seems that Yitzchak was born bad. Esav, I'm sorry. I know, I got it. Esav seemingly was already told to Rivka before Esav was born that this kid is going to be bad, right? You have two guys. So first of all, how can Yitzchak and Rivka create an Esav? They're big tzaddikim. Okay, she got pregnant at the same time for both. How in the world can you have, how can Esav, and also if Esav is a Rasha from birth, what do we want from him later on in life? He was born that way. What do you want from him? He was born a Rasha. What do you want from him? And also deeper, how can you say that Yaakov and Yitzchak and Rivka gave birth to an Esav from the fetal state yet. How could that be? So the Rebbe explains Yitzchak in the fetal state wasn't a Rasha. Esav, I'm sorry. I mean Esav, you got it. Esav. Esav was not born a Rasha. Later on in life, he chose to become a Rasha. But the Rambam says there's two types of Jews. There's a Jew that's born good and is good and remains good. And there's a Jew that has to fight with the Yetzer Hara. Yaakov in utero was this perfect Jew, Yoshev HaHolim, the tzaddik. Esav in utero was a person that would have to fight his Yetzer Hara. Afterwards, he gave in to his Yetzer Hara, but he wasn't born. He was born with the personality that he has to fight the Yetzer Hara. And this is Rivka Imenu, as a matriarch of the Jewish people, has two types of Jews coming out of her. The perfect Jew like Yaakov Avinu, and then the Esav Jew that has to fight. Now, Esav didn't necessarily have to give in to his Yetzer Hara, but he was different personality than Yaakov Avinu was. And this explains another interesting thing in the parsha. And by this, we'll understand the first thing better. When Yitzchak wanted to bless Esav, okay, and he told Esav, go bring me food and I'll give you a bracha, Rivka overheard it, and she calls in Yaakov and she says, okay, I overheard your father wanting to bless your brother Esav. Bring me some, catch me some animals. And then she says like this, Vaseli mat'amim, make for me delicacies, plural. Okay? Now let me ask you a question. Yitzchak was such a tzaddik, he needed two delicacies, one's not enough? Why do you ask Vaseli mat'amim, plural, make for me delicacies? One is not enough? So the Alter Rebbe explains this pasuk in Tanya very beautifully. The Alter Rebbe says like this. In Tanya we know there's a tzaddik who kills the Yetzer Hara. He doesn't have a Yetzer Hara, he kills it. Higher tzaddik transforms it to the Yetzer Hara. Then you have a Beinani. Okay? A Beinani never sins. Not in thought, not in speech, not in action. A Beinani sins once, he's not a Beinani anymore. I mean, he could do tshuva and then become a Beinani. But by definition, a Beinani doesn't sin. So but why is he a Beinani, not a tzaddik? Because he will never be able to conquer the Yetzer Hara and kill it. Only a tzaddik who's born with the ability to be a tzaddik could do it. Nobody, a Beinani, can never become a tzaddik on his own. Why? Because to be a tzaddik, as he had said, Barasa tzaddikim, God created you with the ability of a tzaddik. So Beinani, what type of person is a Beinani basically? He fights his Yetzer Hara, fights, never gives in, but he never wins. He never conquers it. So the Alter Rebbe in Tanya asks a very simple question. What in the world is the purpose of a Beinani coming into the world? Fight, and never win? What purpose is that? What is the purpose of that? Or as the Rambam says, there's a Chassid Ma'ula, there's a holy level of a Chassid, a tzaddik, and then there's a person that's fighting with the Yetzer Hara. What is the purpose of that person? Especially if he knows he'll never win. And the Alter Rebbe explains it with this pasuk, Vaseli Matamim. Rivka, the matriarch of the Jewish people, says, Yidden, there's two delicacies God likes. Father in heaven. There's two delicacies that Hashem likes. What does it mean? In life, when you eat food, Some people like sweet food. Some people like bitter, sour food. It's also delicacy. Sharp food is a delicacy. Many people like sharp food. Some people like sweet food, and some people like bitter food, sharp food. Now, the Rebbe adds, though, if somebody, God forbid, faints, you don't give him sugar to smell. You give him something sharp to awaken them, to bring back the nefesh. Hashem says, guys, there's two types of delicacy. The purpose of Judaism, Torah mitzvahs, is for us to give Hashem pleasure, einig, because he wants it that way. There's two types of pleasure a Jew can give God. A sweet pleasure and a bitter pleasure. The tzaddik kills the Yetzer Hara, this chassid ha'ma'ula like Yaakov Avinu. That's a sweet pleasure. There's no fighting evil. He doesn't have temptations. He doesn't have desires. He's doing what Hashem wants him to do. The Beinani, who's kavish as Yitzray, he doesn't kill it. He conquers it. He doesn't kill it. That is the spicy delicacy. And therefore, Rivka says to Jewish people, your father Hashem wants to bless you. You have to make him delicacies. You have to make him the sweet delicacy, and you have to make him the sour, sweet, sharp delicacy. Both are delicacies. And in fact, the bitter delicacy brings a person back to life quicker than the sweet delicacy does. So he says this is what the whole concept of Aseli Matamim, and this is what happened within Rivka's stomach. When she was carrying the twins, the Torah is teaching us there's two types of Jews being born. Not an Esav that loses and gives into the Yetzer Hara and on his own free will decides to be a Rasha. But Hashem, Rivka, the matriarch of Klal Yisrael, is giving birth in utero. There's two levels of Jews. There's a level of Jews that the Rambam calls a Chassid Ma'ula, let's call him a Tzaddik. And then you have a Kavish Yitzri, the level of a Beinani. These are the two levels of Aveda that every Jew has. And therefore Rivka says, when she tells Yaakov, or Yitzchak says even Vaseli Matamim, what he needs two delicious hors d'oeuvres. One's not enough. The answer is we're talking about spiritual over here. The obvious teaching us, Vaseli Matam, there's two types of delicacies a Jew can give God. A Jew can give Hashem a delicacy of being good and keeping Torah mitzvahs without fighting, and then you have a fight. And by the way, each one of us have both of these. Sometimes things are calm and quiet, and we don't have temptations, we don't have fights, we're not killing ourselves. That's at a certain point of the day, a Jew can be at that level of a Chassid Ma'ula, of the Tzaddik. And sometimes in the day, the Jew could be a Rasha. I mean, the Kavish Yitzrei of having the opportunity not to become a Rasha, but he has a fight. And therefore, what does Alter Rebbe say in Tanya? A Beinani should never give up. Because, all of us, sometimes we're doing this. We're doing Torah mitzvahs. We're doing what we have to do. And it's so hard, and we're never getting better. The Yetzer Hara is just as strong as it was. And what are we doing this for? I have to constantly fight to daven and to learn and to do mitzvahs. What do I need it for? The answer is this is what Hashem wants. This is Rivka carrying an Esav, meaning there is a person that needs to fight. This is what Hashem wants from this particular person. Other people, Hashem doesn't want him to fight. He wants him to be Yeshiv Eholim. He wants him to be a Yaakov Avinu. But both are very important and both are equal. And not only that, there's an advantage of the person fighting because the bitter delicacy can revive the person when the sweet one can't. Okay, there's a lot. This parsha is unbelievable, which you can discuss. Okay, let's discuss another major thing in the parsha. if you wanted to write a reality show, you want to write a reality show that lahavdil you have in the crazy Goyish world out there, reality shows of dysfunctional families. You could start in Chumash Bereshis, from the beginning of Chumash Bereshis until the end of Chumash Bereshis. You have unbelievable, every parsha is another reality show, seemingly of a dysfunctional family. Okay? Without elaborating on it, go to the first family. Adam and Chava, right away she gets into sin. Then one brother kills the next. Great family. A brother Cain kills Hevel. You go to the next generation, the Mabul, the Chum, what he wanted to do to his father. Avram Avinu with Terach, and then Yitzchak, you have Yitzchak and Yishmael, and the fighting, and then you have Esav and Yaakov, and then you have Yosef and the brothers. It looks like one this big dysfunctional family. But obviously it's not. It's not. This is all the ultimate level of what Kedusha is and what life is all about. In the Parsha, it says, the beginning of the Parsha, Yitzchak loved Esav. If I mentioned this morning by Chassidus and Shul, very briefly, but now we'll elaborate on it a little bit. Yitzchak loved Esav. The pasuk says, "Ve'av Yitzchak es Esav ki tzayid b'fiv." Okay, Rashi brings down two interpretations. One is that he used to give him food. Another interpretation is that he used to trick him with questions about salt and how do you tithe salt and how you tithe the straw. Fanatic questions. But Rivka Heves Yaakov. Rivka loves Yaakov. Yeah. Let me ask you a question. Didn't Yitzchak and Rivka talk to each other? Don't you think they discussed at the dinner table what's going on with their kids, Yaakov and Esav? What did dysfunction? They didn't talk to each other. And why Taka did Yitzchak love Esav? Because he gave him food. I mentioned this morning in Tavshin Chav Ches, there was an Aguda convention in New York, this time of the year, this Parsha. Okay? And a big rabbi got up at the Aguda convention in New York. You understand, there's a very frum convention. And he got up and he said that Chabad, he didn't like Chabad too much. He said Chabad is like Yitzchak. Why? Just like Yitzchak liked Esav because he gave him food. Chabad loves the irreligious Jews because they give him money. This is what he said. At the next Farbrengen, the Rebbe said, number one, thanks for the compliment. You're comparing Chabad to Yitzchak Avinu. Hello, that's a very good compliment. Thanks for the compliment. And then the Rebbe started screaming. He said, how do you have the chutzpah to speak about Yitzchak Avinu like that? That Yitzchak Avinu loved Esav because he gave him a good steak, because he gave him a good salmon, because he gave him good dessert. Are you kidding? The Rebbe said to him, the whole long sikh, and the Rebbe had a sikh later. The Rebbe said, this person, this rabbi, has to go to Marsa Machpelah, and he has to ask Yitzchak Avinu Mechila. So the Rebbe said, what does it mean? What does it mean? The Arizal says, Yitzchak looked at the future. Esav was the ancestor of the Romans. Rabbi was he came from Roman converts. Rabbi Akiva came from Roman converts. Onkelos was a Roman convert. Shmai Vatalion, the teachers of Hillel, were Roman converts. The whole Torah, the Gemara says, is based on the teachings of Rabbi Akiva, right? So when Yitzchak saw Esav, what did Yitzchak see in Esav? He didn't see a Rasha. Yitzchak looked in the future, in the source of Esav, and Yitzchak saw that from Esav comes out unbelievable Torah. The whole Torah is based on the teachings of converts that came from Esav. That's what Yitzchak wanted. And that's what Yitzchak saw. And Arizal says, what does it mean? Sayed Bithiv? What captured in the mouth refers to the words of Torah from the mouth. That's why Yitzchak loved Esav. Not because he liked Esav and him and Rivka didn't communicate and they were dysfunctional. Yitzchak looked at Esav in the source, where Esav comes from. Who was the firstborn? Not Yaakov. Esav was the firstborn, because in this source, Esav is greater than Yaakov. Esav is the world of Tehu versus the world of Tikkun, which is Yaakov Avinu. But Yitzchak looked at Esav in a different perspective. Rivka said to him, I know what your intention is, but that's not going to work now. That's going to work when Mashiach comes. Now you are not going to be elevating Esav. Because right now Esav is a Rasha. And Rivka, you have to look at the now. And that's the whole story. You know, it's like Yitzchak wanted to bless Esav, yeah? He calls it Esav, give me food, I'll bless you. Now, he comes back and he says, that's funny. Esav never mentions God's name. And this guy, Yaakov, is mentioning God's name. Like, did he know who Esav was or didn't he know who Esav was? Some people think he was a blind, senile man, and therefore he didn't know who's who. He didn't know what was going on. Yitzchak knew exactly what was going on. Why did Yitzchak want to bless Esav? Because Yitzchak saw the potential of Esav in the source. And Yitzchak maintained, by blessing Esav, he'll bring out the greatness, the Kedusha that exists in Esav, and he'll elevate Esav, and he'll be able to make him the bigger Baal Tshuva than that Yaakov was. Yaakov was a tzaddik. Rivka said, no, that's not the way it works. Rivka understood it differently. Rivka, the great tzaddikus that Rivka was, said, Yitzchak, you're not right. Yitzchak knew exactly who Esav was, and he knew exactly who Yaakov was, and he knew the difference between them. And Yitzchak knew that Yaakov was a tzaddik and Esav was a Rashi. He knew that. But Yitzchak looked at the potential of Esav, the Torah that was going to come out from him. He was looking at the Baal Tshuva aspect. If Esav would have become a Baal Tshuva, he would have been able to elevate that level. And Rivka said, you can't do that now. That will only happen when Mashiach comes. Until then, you can't do it. And that makes sense. Now the whole parsha makes sense. Rivka knew who Yaakov and Yitzchak and Esav were, and Yitzchak knew who Esav was. They all knew it was. But they were looking at it differently. Yitzchak looked at the potential of Esav, the way he comes from a higher source than Yaakov Avinu does. Like it says in Kabbalah and Chassidus, Esav comes in the world of Tehu, which is higher than the world of Tikkun, and that Yaakov Avinu comes in the level of Tikkun. So therefore, this is what he wanted, and therefore explains another thing. When Yaakov Avinu was buried, the famous story in the Gemara, that Esav came to fight the burial, right? He said, 1 minute. Marsa Machpelah, okay, Adam and Chava, Avram and Sarah, Yitzchak and Rivka. Now there's 2 graves left. Okay, one for Yaakov, one for Esav. So he says to Yaakov, 1 minute, you buried Leah there. So now the other grave is mine. I'm not going to let you be buried. Okay, and everybody knows the story. Chushim ben Dan took a stick and chopped off the head of Esav. And the Gemara says, and the Zohar says it even more, where did Esav's head end up? Next to the feet of Yitzchak and Marsa Machpelah, and he's still buried there. Esav's children took body of Esav headless back to bury him in Har Seir. Where's Yitzchak's head? I'm sorry, where's Esav's head? Esav's head is next to Yitzchak's feet. This is the difference between Yitzchak and Rivka. Yitzchak wanted to elevate the head of Esav, which is Kedusha, the head, the top level of Esav, the Kedusha of Esav. he wanted to elevate it together with Esav's body. Rivka said, that you cannot do. Esav's head could be buried next to you. Esav's body, take it away. And this was the difference. And now everything in the parsha makes sense. Why Yitzchak loved Esav versus Rivka loving Yaakov? It wasn't that they were miscommunicating. This explains why Yitzchak wanted to bless Esav, not because he was a senile man and he didn't know who Esav was. He knew exactly who Esav was. And Yitzchak maintained by blessing Esav will be able to elevate him. And therefore we find another thing. One of it says, when Rashi says, when Yitzchak got older, he says, Vatechana einav mereis. Yitzchak eyes dimmed. Okay, what's interesting, somebody once said when they wrote the Sikha, that the Rebbe said he was blind. The Rebbe never said he was blind because Yitzchak was an Oila Tmima. His eyes dimmed. Okay, and Rashi says 3 explanations why Yitzchak's eyes dimmed. One explanation is that why did Hashem make Yitzchak's eyes dimmed, that he couldn't see well? Because he wanted Yaakov to get the bracha. Okay? Can you imagine? Just listen to this a second. In order for Yaakov to get the bracha from Yitzchak, Hashem made Yitzchak not able to see that Yaakov should be able to get the bracha. Now let me ask you a question. Why didn't Hashem call up Yitzchak, send him a text, and tell him, my friend, I know you want to bless Esav, but no, it got to go to Yitzchak, to Yaakov. Why are you blessing Esav? Give him to Yaakov. Yaakov deserves the bracha, not Esav. And instead of that, Hashem made him blind, or that he couldn't see for the last who knows how many years. He was not able to see from 127 to 180. Okay, close to 50 years he couldn't see because of that. So why didn't Hashem just tell Yitzchak, hey, Esav doesn't deserve the bracha, give it to Yaakov? And the Rebbe says you see a very interesting lesson from it. Hashem said, I don't want to speak Lashon Hara against the nether Jew, even Esav. Even if that means that Yitzchak's not going to be able to see the well because of that. Hashem's teaching us, you don't speak Lashon Hara on another Jew, even if he's a Rasha. And Hashem said it's better to make Yitzchak's eyes dimmed rather than speak Lashon Hara against Esav. It's a remarkable concept. A very practical lesson. Okay, what I want to do now, I mean, again, you can talk a lot on the Parsha. Tonight is Rosh Chodesh Kislev. Rosh Chodesh Kislev in 1977 was Tafshin Lamed Ches, but it was before the New Year. It's Shmini Atzeres. Most of us know the story that the Rebbe had a massive heart attack, Shmini Atzeres, at night, in the middle of Akafis. The Rebbe had a bigger heart attack later that night, a more massive heart attack. And the doctors said they needed to take the Rebbe to the hospital. The Rebbe said he's not going, didn't want to go. It was a whole issue. And even when the Rebbe Tzin Chayimushka came, and they told the doctor, said to her, you have to convince your husband, the Rebbe, to go to the hospital. And the Rebbetzin answered the following. Since I know my husband, he was always in control of himself. And therefore, if this is what he wants now, this is what we're going to do. And because of what she said, they did not take the Rebbe to the hospital, even though the doctors wanted to sedate him and take him against his will. The Rebbetzin said, it's not happening. The Rebbe doesn't want it to happen. It's not happening. And the Rebbe had an intensive care unit in his room from Shmini Atzeres. Now, there was the night of Shmini Atzeres, Matzoi Simchas Torah, which within 48 hours of the Rebbe's massive, massive heart attack, double heart attack, and the second one was really, really bad. The Rebbe spoke a sicha from his room. I was there in New York. I remember everything that happened. The Rebbe said a sicha from his room. The doctors gave the Rebbe permission to speak, I think, for 2 or 3 minutes. The Rebbe spoke like 15, 20 minutes. And when the Rebbe finished, the doctor said to him, did you say everything you had to? The Rebbe said, no, it's going to take years. It's going to take a very long time for me to say what I want to say. So the Rebbe was in his room. There's a lot. There's a whole called Rosh Chodesh Kislev. There's a whole pamphlet that's out in English, and the details of all the details of the story. The bottom line is, on Rosh Chodesh Kislev that year, 5 weeks after the heart attack, the Rebbe finally went home. Okay? That time, the Rebbitzin was upstairs by her mother's apartment. She passed away already, the previous Rebbitzin. But the Rebbitzin was upstairs. She saw the simcha that the Jews had, that the Chassidim had, and she said she never knew that the Chassidim loved the Rebbe that much. So Rosh Chodesh Kislev actually became a Yom Tiv of our generation. Like Hey Tevis with the Svarim, Rosh Chodesh Kislev was a Yom Tiv made by the Chassidim in honor of the Rebbe's being able to go home, meaning he was healthy enough to be able to go home. And every Rosh Chodesh Kislev, Chassidim Fabrein, and they have a Suda Seidah, what's called like a Thanksgiving meal, in a wave of Fabrengen, to celebrate the fact that the Rebbe went home in Tov Shin Lamed Ches, 1977, when he went home after his miraculous recovery from the heart attack. Okay, but there's an obvious question. The Rebbe passed away already, physically. Tov Shin Nun Daled, the Rebbe physically passed away. Why are we celebrating this day today? I understand if the Rebbe was still alive, we're celebrating the day the Rebbe recovered. But since then, the Rebbe physically passed away. Why are we celebrating this holiday today? And also, why did the Rebbe go home on Rosh Chodesh Kislev? Rosh Chodesh Kislev, the Rebbe chose to go home on Rosh Chodesh Kislev. What's this unique day, Rosh Chodesh Kislev? And what does this mean for us today, seemingly when the Rebbe already passed away? So Kislev is known in the Chassidic, in the Chabad Chassidic community as Chodesh HaGeula, the month of redemption. The Alter Rebbe was released on the 19th of Kislev. The Mittel Rebbe was released on the 10th of Kislev. All the Rebbes were jailbirds, most of them. They're all jailbirds for spreading Yiddishkeit. The Alter Rebbe, and as we learned many times when we verbring Yutes Kislev, we spoke about Yutes Kislev. It's not a physical decree. It's not a physical decree that the Alter Rebbe personally was in prison, then he got out. When the Alter Rebbe was put into prison, it was a decree against the whole dissemination of Chassidic philosophy. The Alter Rebbe took the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov and made it into Chabad, meaning Chabad. He already brought it down into a level of Yefarnasu, meaning that you support it from it, you broaden it, you spread it out all over the world. This is what the Alter Rebbe accomplished. And the reason why the Alter Rebbe was put into prison was because there was a decree against that dissemination of Chassidus. And that ability to disseminate and spread out Chassidus was hanging for a while until the Alter Rebbe was redeemed. What happened when the Alter Rebbe was doing them? This is what Yutes Kislev is all about. Not Stam a day the Alter Rebbe got out of prison. It was a day that in heaven they decreed that Chassidus could be disseminated not only as much as before, but as the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid told the Rebbe in prison when they came to visit him, whatever that means, that now you have to disseminate it more than you did before. So what's Yutes Kislev? There was a decree against the whole teachings of Chassidus, and Yutes Kislev broke it. The same thing happened in Yud Kislev with the Mittel Rebbe. The Mittler Rebbe was also put into prison because he was helping Jews out and sending money to them, and the government thought he's a revolutionary and he's treason against the government. These decrees are not physical things. When things happen to tzaddikim, there are spiritual things going on. Kislev is a Chodesh HaGeula, the month of redemption. Meaning as follows. Matan Torah is in the month of Sivan. Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, the third month. Kislev is the third month from Tishrei. Tishrei Chashim Kislev. That means Kislev and Sivan are connected. Matan Torah is the third month from Nisan Avodah, and Kislev is the third month from Tishrei Avodah. What's the Avodah of Nisan? Nes, revelation from above. God revealing himself to the Jews and taking them out of Egypt. When we're learning about Tishrei, what is Tishrei? Tshuva, lower to higher. Okay? Lower to higher means bettering ourselves, refining ourselves. Us doing Avodah, us doing the work. What is the month of Kislev? Chodesh HaGeula. It's the time of redemption. What does it mean, the redemption? Redemption means we go out of our personal exile to redeem ourselves. We are all trapped in our mental state, in our emotional state, in the social state, in the political state. We're all exiled. We have no control of ourselves. Our Yetzer Hara is controlling us. Our desires are controlling us. Our neighbors are controlling us. Everything's happening. What does Geula mean? Redemption. But there could be two types of redemption. There'd be a redemption that God does, Nisan, Nigel, Hashem revealed himself to the Jews and took them out of Golus. And there's a tshuva geula, as the Rambam says, Yisrael eis in tshuva, when the Jews do tshuva, or miyad hein nigolen, and they're going to be redeemed. There's a redemption that we do, and there's a redemption that God does. Kislev represents the geula, the redemption that we do. Now, sometimes, I'm going to go a little over tonight, but it's okay. If you want to shut out, you can shut out. What happens over here? Sometimes when we want to do Yiddishkeit, we have blockages. Sometimes the blockages come from Jews. Sometimes the blockages come from Goyim. Which one's worse? When Jews are blocking us to keep Torah and mitzvahs, because they have free choice. And they chose to block us in Torah mitzvahs. Goyim, when they want to block us and stop us from doing Torah mitzvahs, they don't have free choice. Yutis Kislev, the Goyim put the Alter Rebbe into prison. Because he snitched, he was giving money to to Israel, was in cahoots with Turkey, and Turkey was fighting Russia at that time. What did Yutis Kislev show in the redemption of the Jew? Yutis Kislev shows that even if Goyishkeit, Goyim and Goyishkeit, secularism, evil, temptations, want to put us into prison, they want to stop us from being the chassid that we need to be. Yutis Kislev shows in heaven, they say you have the power to overcome that. You have the power to overcome that. That's what Yutis Kislev, in a nutshell. That's what Yutis Kislev is. Yud Beis Tammuz, the Rebbe once spoke, what's the uniqueness of Yud Beis Tammuz over Yutis Kislev? Because the Alter Rebbe was first, that's one level of redemption. Now we come to a deeper level of redemption. What happened on Yud Beis Tammuz? The Jewish communists put the Frierdiker Rebbe into prison. The Jewish communists put the Alter Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Rebbe, into prison, without again elaborating on that whole story. What did Yud Beis Tammuz show? Yud Beis Tammuz showed that even if other Jews want to stop you from doing Torah mitzvahs, you have the ability to overcome them. That's what you based Talmud's redemption did. The Chodesh Kislev is another level of redemption. It wasn't Goyim, it wasn't Yidden. What happened to the Rebbe on Shmini Atzeres? The Rebbe within himself had a heart attack. That was his challenge. Not Goyim stopping him, not Yidden stopping him, but seemingly, the Rebbe himself was stopped from doing what he had to do. What did Rosh Chodesh Kislev accomplish in that respect? That even if it's your inside turmoil, even if it's your inside Yetzer Hara, which, by the way, is much worse than Jews outside of you putting into prison. It's much worse than Goyim putting you into prison. The worst golus, the worst exile a Jew can be in is when he puts himself into exile. He makes the challenges himself. He creates his own problems. He creates his own challenges. And what's the challenge? I can't do it. I can't overcome my Yetzer Hara. I can't overcome my temptations. This is the worst thing that can happen to a person. The worst thing that can happen, the biggest enemy of the Jew is the Jew himself, the personal Jew. When we come along and say, I can't. If another Jew says you can't, a guy says you can't, you can overcome that easier. The worst, as we all know, what is the most difficult thing for us to do? Overcome our own Yetzer Hara. And therefore, what does the same Pirkei Avos say? Zel Gibor, who is strong. It doesn't say Hakevish as Yetzer. The strongest person is conquering your own Yetzer Hara. Hakevish as Yitzray, not somebody else's Yetzer Hara. To conquer your own Yetzer Hara. That's the most difficult thing for a person. What happened in Rosh Chodesh Kislev when the Rebbe went home? The Rebbe showed us, and therefore, even though physically the Rebbe passed away, but the concept of Rosh Chodesh Kislev teaches us, and this is ongoing. The concept of Rosh Chodesh Kislev, the Rebbe, by going home, showed us and inspires us and gives us the strength that even if it's in your internal heart, meaning your internal Yetzer Hara that we might have, that wants to spiritually kill us from observing Torah mitzvahs, Rosh Chodesh Kislev, which is the Rosh Chodesh of the whole month of redemption. The Rebbe always says, in order for Mashiach to come, we first need to go out of our own personal golus. When every Jew goes out of their own personal exile, then Mashiach can come. How do you go out of your personal golus? What is a personal golus? Our personal golus is our own blockages that we think we can't do things that we could. We think I can't overcome my Yetzer Hara. I can't overcome my difficulties. That's the golus we're all in. And when I go out of my own personal golus, then Mashiach can come. And this is what Rosh Chodesh Kislev is. And that's perhaps, why the Rebbe decided to go Rosh Chodesh Kislev. Rosh Chodesh includes within it all the days of the month. It includes within it Yutas Kislev. It includes within it Yud Kislev. It includes within it Chanukah. It includes within all the days of Kislev. What does it mean? The Rebbe going home on Rosh Chodesh Kislev says the whole aspect of redemption of Geula, even if it's a personal blockage, a personal golus, you have the ability to overcome and get better and overcome it and move on. And it's very interesting because after Rosh Chodesh Kislev, the Rebbe started doing more things than he ever did before. Dollars, so many things started after the Rebbe's heart attack. The Rebbe started doing many, many, many more things that he didn't do before. Because the Rebbe said, what was the purpose of the golus? What was the purpose of being stuck in my room? in an intensive care unit in my room, not being able to go out and for break like I wanted, not be able to do things the way I want. The Rebbe said, Rosh Chodesh Kislev, that's the day to go home, to show Chassidim that no matter what the challenge is, no matter what the difficulty is, we shall overcome, and we can overcome. And therefore, even though it's after Gimel Tammuz, this aspect is still alive. Chai v'kayim. Do we know the power we have from this day, that nothing can stand in our way to continue and go home back to the Beis Hamikdash. And this is the power that the Rebbe gave us on this day of Rosh Chodesh Kislev. Hashem should help us. We should be able to overcome all these difficulties. We should have Taka Chodesh HaGeula, tonight's Rosh Chodesh Kislev. We should have a month of redemption from all the craziness that's going on in the world today.
Amen.
The coronavirus and all the mishigas and the political everything crazy that's going on in the world. Hashem should help us. We should have a geula from it, a redemption. And we talk about it should be a chodesh geula in its full sense of the word, with the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu.
Amen. Thank you.
Wednesday night, the Hashem is Tanya and Halach and Tanya. Don't forget, Wednesday 8 o'clock.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Amen.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you.
Explain
something. I always wanted to know the answer to that question. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi. Good night.